Jean, I certainly started my study of theology with no intention or expectation of ordination. I took my first course in religious studies in 1969 because I wanted to know why and how Christianity got to be as it is. I wanted to know something about other faith beliefs in the world. And so I began the study of theology with absolutely no goal in mind other than my own satisfaction and edification. And from 1969, I ended up studying religion and theology for 7 straight years. Full-time student. And having graduated from Virginia Wesleyan College with a bachelor's degree in religion, I felt I had just begun. And so I applied to a couple of divinity schools in order to continue. And I was accepted at Harvard Divinity School and packed a few notes and books in my car and went to Cambridge to continue the study of theology. When I arrived in the Cambridge community, I found that I was with a group of such erudite people who had goals at the end. And I was reminded of my mother-in-law who used to say to my children when they were in college, "What are you going to be?" And I don't think they knew on the day of graduation what they were going to be, but she had in mind Dr. Lawyer, Naval Officer, as she had instructed her children. And so I felt that I had better formulate some goal for myself, what I was going to be. And I therefore applied for endorsement for ordination through the Virginia Synod. And there are some first lines in our lives, like "Call me Ishmael" and so forth, that I will never forget. And the letter that came from the Virginia Synod was, "For you, the hour is late." Somewhere in my head. However, I went through all of the proofs that are necessary for ordination, and at the end of 3 years, I graduated in Norfolk again, and I did my internship differently. I graduated before I did the internship, which to this day I think is a better system. And I went to a 4-church parish in northeast Pennsylvania, where I filled the slot for a pastor because they were too poor to pay a pastor, and therefore used the services of an intern to preach twice every Sunday, half the baptisms, half the funerals. And I did a 12-month internship there. And I felt at the end of that experience that I did have some skills for parish ministry based in part on their asking me to stay. And I don't think anyone should ever go into ordination without the security of some skills to keep a job. And so again, I turned to the Virginia Synod for ordination and for a call, and that is when my struggle began. The incumbent bishop had not approved my not going to a Lutheran seminary, which I think was the main thing that was being held against me. So when I presented myself before the candidacy committee, as I say, with a cum laude degree, having won money prize for best preacher in the school, having done a 12-month internship, having done the CPE, and absolutely everything that was required. The bishops and the candidacy committee concluded that because, in the words of the bishop, I had gone to that hotbed of radicalism up north, that I had not been properly educated in the Lutheran polity, despite the fact that I had studied 2 years with Henry Horn, who wrote the book. At Harvard Divinity School, the dean, Mr. Stendhal, was Lutheran. My advisor, Nina Georgi, was Lutheran. My old New Testament professors were Lutheran. And yet, I had not been properly educated for a Lutheran parish. So I was directed to go to the Philadelphia Seminary and be examined by 2 professors. And when I got there, one of them happened to be Timothy Love, who had been a Lutheran pastor in the Boston area when I was a student. And he just laughed his head off. And we talked for a couple of hours, and he wrote a letter saying, yes, he thought I had been properly educated. That didn't do me much good, because then I waited 8 solid months. I was sent to one parish, which happened to be a Freeport parish in West Virginia, which was used to be a portion of under the Virginia Senate, the Wardensville parish. I did not hear anything for months and months as I waited in my Virginia Beach home until one day the bishop called and said, Brinkley, they don't know at Wardensville whether they want a woman or not. So this is what I'm willing to do. I'll send you there. You can live in the parsonage and everything. And if they get to like you, then I'll ordain you and you can stay. And when I got through telling him what I thought of that I knew I had to be in the Virginia Senate. And so I had a friend, many friends in fact, I had served in Pennsylvania. And I was invited to make an appointment with the Central Pennsylvania bishop, who received me graciously and with open arms, and offered me 2 parishes to take my choice right away. And I was ordained in Pennsylvania, not Michigan. That is the beginning of my story. I told Judy that I could only come if I might be allowed to be totally honest.
You know Brinkley What have you ever been otherwise?
I have not been accepted, I don't think even today, by the Virginia Senate.
You know about the church?
No, she's accepted by the church and Jesus.
I've been accepted by Jesus and the church. But I had never, even the 12 years that I had been back in retirement, I had never been asked to do one thing for the Virginia Senate.
I'm the latest to be ordained, but by a couple of years the younger one. And so I think my question for myself was more, why not? Why can I not be ordained? And I think part of that comes from the fact that I went to an all-women's school from 3rd grade to 12th grade, where we did everything. And I didn't grow up with the thought that like men are presidents and women are secretaries. We just did it. And I can remember, I think I said it in worship service a couple of weeks ago. I was in confirmation class, and the pastor said, well, boys, please wait after confirmation class and I'll train you as acolytes. I was like, why the boys? You know, not even as a feminist thing. I just, why the boys? And he was incredibly startled, and I said, well, I'd like to to do that. My brother did that. I'd like to do that. And he said, I'll pray about it. Well, as far as I know, that man was praying until his death. There was no woman in a section in Baltimore who ever touched those plates or lit that, you know? And I wasn't terribly angry, kind of like, you know, there's something that I kept on saying, well, why not? When I went to college, I had already taken 6 years of Greek, and so I wanted to continue in New Testament Greek, and I wanted to sign up as a pre-sem, even though I knew that I couldn't be ordained by one of those religion courses, and I wanted to do Greek. And it was the same thing. They just looked startled. How can you possibly be signing up for a pre-seminary? You're a woman. And I would be, but why not? Why can't I do this? I already know the Greek. I would 6 more years with schmucky boys. I could do this, you know? And the same thing with religion. And one of the parenthetical things about this is, I think that you will find, that especially anyone who came through the first wave, and I think that that is true in any profession, understood that they're on the line. You had to be the best. You had to do it better. You would be picked out. You would be put in front. You would be able to do it. And I can still remember when I did get to seminary, this professor at 8 o'clock in the morning who blows cigar smoke in the 3 women's faces and go, how are you doing this morning? They didn't do that to the guys, and then they would have you stand, you know, you do the deal, don't you? You knew that if you messed it up, you're messing up your chances of other people's chances. So then I did graduate from Uppsala, and they were not ordained women, and kind of like Jean said, I started working in Washington, but then I spent more and more time doing the church things that I loved, to the point that I was working to afford to be able to do the other things that I loved. And by that time, women were allowed in the seminary, and so I wrote off and was accepted. And why not? My mother almost died. I mean, she just could not believe that I would do something like that. She kept on saying, a woman on the altar? On the altar? And I would try to like joke and say, well, you know, I'm not going to be a Vestal Virgin, Mom, you know. She said, my father kept saying, you were making good money. What happened? You know, why would you do this? Then I was in seminary, and really, I think the professors were very affirming at that time. There were only 6 people, women, in the entire seminary. So, which was really, I have new respect for people of different racial backgrounds who, when we say stupid things like, because they said it to us, they always got us confused. The guys and the professors could never remember which girl's name was which because we all looked alike. Excuse me. There weren't any bathrooms for women in the major buildings. I was telling about the talk ladies here today, but I was telling them how every time I got up to speak, they would say, lower your voice. We spent our whole life lowering our voices, trying to grace and peace to you. Got it. So then I finally figured out it was to sound like male persons. And
It worked,
but then why not be ordained? Then I was going for ordination, and what I loved best in the congregation was because you go out and you know experience and internships. It was the whole teaching ministry and that whole sense of what it is to live a daily life, to be involved in that kind of thing, and what it is in that confirmation. And at that time, seminaries said absolutely not. There are not specialized ministries. If you are to be ordained, you are to be the primary pastor of the congregation. Well, I didn't have any models. I had no models. You have to think of that. I have never seen a woman in front of me in the church, ever, except in the worship area. You have to think of it. I said it today, so the first woman I ever heard speak was myself. That was weird. You kind of say, ooh. And then I was getting married, and the answer there was, I I think the church is a little more flexible now about saying, well, what about called part-time ministry, or what about this? And but then it was, you're in it forever, you're in it for full time, you have to be this, and once again I kind of got caught and did not do that, and I decided to be what they call it, a lay professional. But anyhow, lay professional, and then an associate ministry. And every time you went someplace, it was like, well, why can't you do this? I think some of the people here don't remember, like Sarah, when I remember, when there was no woman who read the lesson, there was no usher, there was no air conditioning, killing her. There was, no, first, well, that was an argument in this congregation. We had to take it to council to allow a woman to carry the cross in this congregation, in my congregation, because it was ushers. You have to see that, and the fellow was like, why can't we? And so, then the rest of the story. I came here, and all of a sudden people were saying to me, well, you are serving as a pastor in many ways. And then the world got the worst. Why aren't you doing it? I don't know. I think I just heard so many no's along the way. I just kind of started. So, you know the rest. Okay.
Okay, well, maybe we could do a good news, bad news sort of thing. What has given you the most satisfaction since you've been ordained? And what has been the most frustrating for you? The most difficult?
Well, I was in a position where I've been trusted for everything, and of course there's a sense when you are early in the game, that I finally, one time I was getting interviewed and I said, they were asking about first was the reality is if I walk down the street in a different way, it's first. Because the ordained woman hasn't done it that way before. But there is a certain sense when it is so hard always being the first. Whether first on seminary faculty, first to do this, first or be ordained in Virginia. And those were wonderful celebration kinds of times. I think the hardest for me has been I've taught in the seminary for 18 years, and so I was also in a position where there were not many other women faculty at the beginning. There were no Lutheran women faculty. And so what was hard was to try to always encourage other women that this was going to come, and to be a teacher for the pastors who were already there. We did a conference probably 20 years ago now for all the bishops in the 3 church bodies and all of their assistants, because the kinds of things that Brinkley was talking about, we could not get women past seminary. We could get them ordained, get them trained, but then they could get calls, and we gave the bishops protocols that were monitoring that kind of thing. So we did a training, a 3-day training for all the bishops. Those were hard times, but they were also joyful times. They were very hard to put yourself out there and say, we need to tell you some things. So the church supported that. It was a national conference. We did 3 of them across the church. And I chaired that process, and that was just really very difficult. I think the hard part has always been hearing the stories of people who were doing everything right, but to have good Christian people who said, but you've got to be more life. And so therefore, God's given you all these gifts, but you can't use these skills without God's calling. To me, that's been the hardest. The absolute most wonderful has been the opportunity to serve and to baptize, to serve the communion, to be with people at the time of death, to be there in the sad and joyous things. To many people do let you into their hearts, their homes, in a way that could not do otherwise. That's been the absolute joy. And the most awesome part of that is to say, to stand there and feel so terribly inadequate and say, why me, Lord? screw up, but God's going to do it. It's still active there.
I have already spoken of my biggest struggle. And of course was and still is in a certain way my relationship with the Virginia Synod. My greatest satisfaction was the rich experience of pastoral ministry that I had in Pennsylvania. My first call was to a church that was founded in 1771, a rural congregation across the road from a dairy farm. In 210 years when I arrived, they had never had a pastor on their own. They had managed with circuit rides to begin, interim pastors, and most recently unity with a sister church sharing a pastor. Well, the sister church had decided to disunite, to go on their own. So for a year and a half, when I arrived, they had been left with no pastor. And I chose to go there, even though upon my arrival, I saw a little building parallel to the front door that had ladies on one side and gentlemen on the other. And my first thought was, they don't even have indoor plumbing, which of course they did. But sometimes I think I went there just to get that outhouse down. It was a challenge to me. I was asked to serve that church, and my salary, and when I say salary, I mean everything. My salary, my housing allowance, my car allowance was $14,500. And after I had been there a while, the chairman of the call committee said to me, "Well, Brinkley, we were afraid you weren't going to come for that. But I want you to know we were expecting to have to go up to 14,800." I can't remember whether he smiled and he said that. But I had the advantage of an independent income, and the church salary did not matter that much to me. It was an opportunity to serve, and within a year, the outhouse was down, and the $300,000 education building was on that spot.
And they did a lot of that with that.
They did every bit but $30,000. This was a church. You know, some of those Pennsylvania Germans don't spend money for anything. They don't spend money for anything they can do themselves. I was the main person, the secretary, the organist, they were all volunteers, and so it was when it came to putting up the building. The carpenters and the electricians and the cement people came out. We took a $30,000 letter of credit and never went to deny that. And that was paid off very quickly, because people in Pennsylvania have money, just don't know it. So I stayed there for 5 years. And the bishop asked me if I would go to a church in Norfolk. It was quite different there. Maybe I was just a total woman, but the bishop had put me on every committee and every task force that came up in the Synod. I used to being called on by the Synod. I was even for 2 years a traveling pastoral evangelist for the national church. So I was used to working very hard, and the bishop knew that I was not afraid of people. And so he asked me if I would go to a church in Purdue, which was a call from Synod, not from the congregation. It was a contract with Synod, and they gave me 4 years to straighten out a very bitter, fragmented congregation. And I did so. I went into the parsonage, and I met a woman on the street who said, "Who are you?" The first day I was there, and I told her I was the new pastor, and she said, "Minister John, I fell in that role." So that again claim success because in 2.5 years things were straightened out sufficiently for all their new pastor. They asked me to stay and I declined because I thought they should have a new beginning. But my greatest satisfaction all my years in Pennsylvania, where I was appreciated and allowed to practice what skills I had, and to this day, my heart is full.
Sorrow is a difficult thing. I think my greatest sorrow is that we really are not beyond looking at people and making judgments. Not just women, but we make certain judgments about people and what they can do for our church and for our lives. It still makes me very sad. It is true still. I just obviously have been speaking with bishops. The bishop told me I do not place women in major congregations as senior pastors. And I said, why not? She said, they don't like it. Well, how do we know? You know? We do this with young people. We do this with different races or people who have accents or people who are bald or people to make an assumption of what their abilities are to speak the word of the Lord, to serve Jesus. Makes me really, really sad. And it continues. Just about a month ago, this is kind of a fun story, but in this congregation, this person was talking to me and thanking me for years of ministry and the time we were together. He went on. It was very complimentary. I'm smiling. I'm thinking, oh, that's so nice of you, sis. And so all I can say is I hope we get the next pastor is a man just like you.
Well, that was a supreme compliment.
I guess it was. But, you know, we do make judgments. I'm not just talking just about women. We make these judgments. We'll say everybody in a congregation is open because the doors are open. But my question is, when do we go out of the doors and bring them in? Doors open is enough. And so I guess that's still my sorrow. My joy absolutely is every single day. I absolutely love doing what I do and where I am. And there are times now 1 o'clock goes off at 5:45. I'm not particularly joyous, but by the time I'm up and have my coffee, everything is great. I need to leave, which is just fine, to these wonderful people because I need to go cheer the children for teacher appreciation. Okay, so thank you very much.
Now we'll do questions and answers. You can just direct it right to them.
No, I'm not really going to, it's been a thrill to have Judy here for years. In fact, I give her credit for a lot of bringing the spirituality back into my life. And she's been a joy. I was just wondering, all three of you have been a kind of like Martin Luther King, and at the beginning of a change, and have you lost anything in it as far as bitterness and the way things, doors that were you had to knock on and maybe plow through at the beginning? Have you lost sight of what brought you? I guess to me, a calling of the ministry is a calling. Has it been hard to keep that within inside yourself with all the doors that were slammed in your face?
For me, it hasn't, and part of that is just who I am. Most of the time, when the doors have been slammed, it's been, okay, how do we go the other direction? like I said, there have been lots of tears. And when I went to the seminary to teach, that was 1971, and we had just a handful of women students. I think we had one woman who ordained track, and several others finally during Christian education. And Judy talks about that. And there were times it was hard to keep focused because you do have to deal with some stupid things, where bathrooms are located, or how many bathrooms can be added, so there's, just that mundane kind of stupid stuff, but it's amazing how people can get so fired up over some of these little things. And I think the distressing part along the way was having to spend so much time doing that. I remember speaking at a convention, and I thought I really, thought we'd done a wonderful job, and afterwards somebody comes up and most curious about the clothing, because they did. Well, of course, I was interested in making clothes for us when I was there. I couldn't get a blouse except a men's blouse, but the sleeves were huge, which I love, the shorts didn't fit right. So it was frustrating, and they sound like pity-winning kinds of things, but I talked to the fortress about the fact that we need that symbol when we go into a hospital. You're always dealing with those kinds of things. Did it make me bitter? No. I've been privileged in that I had worked for 10 or 15 years in the church, and I was well known at the time I became ordained. So there were lots of people who were saying yes. I felt that position gave me an opportunity to open doors for a lot of other people. And so there have been lots of issues that I have spoken up on that really meant a lot of difference to me personally, because I made that path, but knew that for the future, this had to be. So I could go out and speak to a congregation on the issue of ordination, and usually tended to speak on the roles of people in the church, not just on ordination, but how God has called us and what God has called us to be. So I spoke on things like that, and knowing that I could go into, as a seminary professor, I could go into a congregation, and they didn't have to worry about calling me, so their defenses were down. And I could talk to them in a different way. And then I could say, they could come out of church and say, gosh, I never heard a woman preach before. And I said, yeah, your church didn't fall down, did it? There may be some way for other people along the way. So there, the church has been there. I've told that group of kids that my dilemma in my career was that I wanted to teach, I wanted to work with people, I wanted to travel, I wanted to, the list went on. And in some ways I cut that out, because serving the church, I've been able to do far more than I ever dreamed possible. I have had opportunities and doors that open that I could not ever have imagined. And so, goodness knows,
I certainly had no bitterness at this point in my life, and contentment and peace in God's grace is the most important thing. There are two things I should like to say, however, and one is to inform you of the power of bishops. The other thing I would like to say is that I wish newly ordained women for whom it is so easy today would understand, acknowledge, and appreciate the struggle it was for the pioneers who went through what we did in the 70s to make the way easy.
I wanted to know if the attitude among the lay people is anywhere comparable to that of the hierarchy, and what we as lay people can do to change attitudes of bishops and tell them, hey, look, the playing field possibly is still not level, and what needs to be done to make it even.
Well, I certainly haven't found any hostility among lay people. As I said in my first congregation, they were so happy to get someone who was willing to come for a sour that would not have supported a man with a family, that I was appreciated right from the start. And I have not felt any animosity. I think there were 5 votes against me in the first poll, and I knew who one of them was. And later, I said to him, Walter, I know that you're one of the people who voted against me. And he said, well, a person can change his mind. So, I think that's the way it goes with the congregation. When they see that you are capable, that's all that's necessary.
Now, I think it's more about an experience. When we don't know something, we fear it. And so as people have the experience, I think there is change. There are still, I still see people, like people I've heard who believe that this is wrong. And I feel like that's just another opportunity for teaching. I think congregations still tend to, when they come to us in the Synod and start talking about who will be their new pastor, they always use the male terminology. I think what can you do? I think you can keep raising up the issues, not just of women, but using all the gifts of all the people of God. I think you can watch your language. Language is powerful. I think when you see things that don't feel just right, you can challenge them. And sometimes just among yourselves, when you hear someone who is always talking about the pastor he, or when you hear people say, well, our next pastor has to be a male or whatever, you can just use those opportunities to say, well, the others also do some approach out there.
For new pastors coming out, they have come through many times different backgrounds than your generation, and they have different expectations of what the jobs are to be like. Specifically for women pastors coming out, who may be married to someone who's not a pastor as well, they're interested in placing questions and job problems. What do you see as the biggest types of problems that perhaps are unique to women pastors that are more perhaps job-oriented sort of things that perhaps area-oriented?
I think some of the issues that we're having the most difficulty with are mobility. And of course, mobility for men and women is pretty tight right now. But we did, there was a time when pastors, and this is not just limited to the field of clergy, but we came out and we took a job wherever it was offered and went where business said you went. People are much more restricted in some of the limitations that they put on the church. And this happens in business too. And we can't always be as adaptive as people would want us to be. For instance, there are lots of pastors sitting in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis that are available for calls, but Minneapolis have a lot of pastors, well, yeah, but they can't use all the pastors they have. We could use some of them over here, but they don't want to come to Virginia. So that flexibility and mobility, the two careers makes it more complicated for men and women. And the willingness for us to begin to help people look at different options for themselves, for the church to look at different options. Because we've got two career folks who, they want to do different things in terms of child care, they want to do different things in terms of who's in the parish, who's in this business setting. So that makes it the complication spots. Impossible? Absolutely not. But it doesn't make it have to look at
I think the profile of all committees is still a man in his 40s with a wife and 2 children, preferably a boy and a girl. And the boy's the oldest. The boy's the oldest. So it is a challenge, and I can report that the word came to me from a member of the call committee of a local church, had just called a woman that the chairman of the call committee announced to the congregation they might have to settle for a woman. So it is the mindset of call committees in some cases that have that perfect pastor in mind. And to me, the Catholic Church has the perfect pastor, which is an unmarried priest, because I was unmarried and I was absolutely available every minute of the day and night with no family to devote time to when I was in the parish. That's perfect for me.
Do you find yourself doing a lot of mentoring to begin with? And I'm not, I have had